Today, I want to talk to you about the force that creates monsters and geniuses, the source of most success, greatness, and self-annihilation. We're talking about the Daimon. And the Daimon, to me, is this animating spirit of desire, the will to power, the will to greatness, the desire to actualize the unseen potential. And this Daimon, it is both dark and light in the extremes, as we're about to talk about. So right here, we have a picture of Alexander the Great, and he's perhaps the embodiment of the Daimon, incarnated. And Alexander the Great, he was LARPing at being Achilles. He wanted to be like Achilles in the Iliad. And Julius Caesar was LARPing at being Alexander. He pretended he was Alexander. He cried at the foot of the statue of Alexander. And Napoleon was trying to be like Caesar. You see, there's a pattern to greatness. Each giant is standing on the shoulders of the giants before them, fueled by the same burning desire to match and exceed their heroes. That is really the essence of the Daimon, is this burning desire to reach the pinnacle, to exceed, that which came before. And we can see the Daimon incarnated in someone like Elon Musk. Elon Musk, his idols were Neil Armstrong growing up, the guy who went into space, and Benjamin Franklin and Steve Jobs all at once. The multifaceted nature of Benjamin Franklin and the design skills of Steve Jobs. We see all of these rolled up into Elon Musk's personality. The most successful artists, inventors, businessmen, conquerors, leaders, they're fueled by this intangible pressure inside of them. And that pressure is what I call the Daimon. This quality of striving and struggling for excellence, this was the lifeblood of ancient Greece, as well as the Renaissance. In ancient Greece, the potters, the lowliest of artisans, they would compete against each other and write slurs into their pottery that like Mark's work over there is bullshit. All the way up to the greatest warriors. They were all competing for excellence, for glory. They wanted eternal fame. That was basically the lifeblood of Greece. And in the Renaissance, we saw the rebirth of Daimon-maxxing. We saw the rebirth of Greek culture. Men reached for the stars spiritually, physically, artistically, and scientifically. They wanted to become great. They wanted to become famous or reach everlasting enlightenment or theosis with God or, eternal fame through art and sculpture in some way. So I just want to make clear the desire for excellence, the Daimon, is what has defined the highest points in human history and the greatest men in it. And in fact, I would say without the Daimon, you have no growth in culture, just like you have no true breakthroughs as a human being. Although this is a contentious point. My next video will be about surrender, the yin versus the yang. There's a lot to say there. So a lot of people here would say that Daimon-maxxing is vain and that seeking eternal glory is childish. And to some extent, they're right. And also, not all men feel the need to aspire to greatness. And I know many successful men that don't have this burning blood for glory inside of them. And that's beautiful. That's great. But some do. And what I want to propose is that force is not a problem. It's not vain. It's not self-aggrandizing. It's actually divine. The Daimon in action. What does it actually look like? The Daimon is in every boy aspiring to be a hero. The Daimon is in every hero striving for glory. The Daimon is in every artist pouring passion onto the page or the stage. The Daimon is the muse behind all great art, invention, success, or cultural growth. And the Daimon is also in every monster, every addict, every suffering artist ready to blow their brains out. The Daimon in its most pure stage, my friends, is the hero worshiping stage of youth. And this is very natural to have a Daimon as a young boy. When I was in 4th grade, I told my dad that I wanted to be great. I was going to go to the best school in the world and I was going to change the world. And it's funny, I think that was the birth of the Daimon for me. And from that point on, I started reading fantasy book after fantasy book and just worshiping these heroes, every night of my life. And this worship of heroes, this hero worship, it allows for rapid acquisition of skills and virtue. I think of the boys in ancient Greece. They would have heard stories of Achilles, of Heracles every single night. The Iliad was their Bible. And because of this great, tremendous hero worship, a lot of the boys in the ancient world, across the entire ancient world, they strove to become a great man. This is where the stories of great chiefs or great forefathers or great heroes is so important and a universal myth across humankind, is because it inspires young men to strive for the pinnacle. And this allows for the rapid acquisition of skills and virtue, which allows for a more relaxed manhood later on. And without this hero worshiping phase, without Daimon-maxxing, men remain stunted. They never learn to reach beyond themselves. And this is what is happening today, is we have lost hero worship in our culture. We have lost respect for the Daimon years. And because of this, we are full of last men. You see, most men are too modest and mediocre to acknowledge the Daimon today. In fact, I have often tried to hide the Daimon inside of me from others because it's too much. It's too fiery. It's too inspired for, the inoffensive man. And in fact, today, what we reward, and look at our commercials, look at our movies, we don't reward the glorious hero. We reward the inoffensive man, the everyman, the placid, domesticated man is our ideal. And because of this, we no longer really understand what creates greatness in people. The burning, freaking daemon. We don't understand this. So Nietzsche warned of the last men. He said the last man is the man who no longer aims or aspires beyond himself. He warned of the daemonless man. And you see, a lot of people are actually trying to eliminate the daemon today. And that's because the daemon causes pain. It causes suffering. It causes restlessness and egotism, but it also causes growth. For instance, if you're always peaceful and placid and in your perfect Zen Buddhist state, watching Netflix and eating popcorn, you would never strive beyond yourself. You would never create the pressure and the tension that is generative to create greatness. You would become a last man, a bug man. And this is what everything's kind of catering to today. And I write all this, even in attacking our society, is because the daemon has defined my life in almost every way. It's the thing that has defined who I am today. And how you channel the daemon well is a chief priority for people like me, because without enough daemon, you won't actualize your potential. You won't want it bad enough. If you don't want it bad enough, you won't win the fight. But too much daemon, too much desire, you will usually kill yourself in some way. And this is very problematic, and this is what I want to talk about. So as Nietzsche said, great men are like explosions. They are overflowings. They go out. They go over. They do not preserve themselves. They spend themselves. So this idea of the daemon wanting to overflow with genius, wanting to overflow with power or energy, like an explosion, this energy is why a lot of artists self-destruct, right? They either commit suicide, they do drugs until they die, they do all the hookers and then blow their brains out. Like, this is a very common story across humanity. And also these great men, if they don't destroy themselves in vices, they destroy themselves through the world, because the world is never enough for them. We saw that with someone like Alexander the Great, Napoleon. All of these figures literally self-destruct through the world. This is just the nature of greatness, is it spends itself. And I want to tell you a cautionary tale here. So the purity of the daemon was when I was about 14. I'd read every fantasy book I could find. And every night, I shit you not, from about 7 p.m. till 9:30 p.m., I would do push-ups and sit-ups while reading books constantly, every single night for 2 hours. And I wanted a ripped body. I wanted a sharp mind. I wanted to be the best I could possibly be. I swore off all drugs and all these things. And then when I was 16, something changed. I watched The Wolf of Wall Street. And I remember watching The Wolf of Wall Street when I was 16, watching all the blow, the money, the hookers, like this enormous debaucherous party, an explosion of power into life. And I wanted that. I wanted that with every part of me, right? So I remember I started waking up at 4 a.m. to work out, get all my schoolwork done before classes so that I could skip classes and trade penny stocks in the library. I wanted to be rich before I graduated. And I did this every single day of my junior and senior year of high school. I also partied hard. I threw all the parties. I got straight A's. I did enough drugs to kill the entire town I was living in. And I graduated valedictorian of a very competitive class. And the entire time, I basically said, fuck you to my parents, to my friends, to everyone. I didn't think I needed anyone anymore. I was following this daemon I wanted to be a billionaire. I wanted to be like the Wolf of Wall Street. I wanted to trade stocks, build businesses, make a fuck ton of money, and live this really like fuck you lifestyle. And of course, I was 17, I was 18. A fire burned in me, and it was so hot, it destroyed everything. When I got to Columbia University, I went through a super intense trial of sickness and addiction. I ended up dropping out. And for the next many years of my life, I was alone. I was homeless. I was battling with addiction and grandiosity and chaos and all of these demons. And it was hellish, absolutely hellish. I remember sitting in the desert, living out of a tent. I hadn't slept in days. I had 100 missed calls from my mom. Everyone thought I was insane or missing. I was isolated, and I was totally convicted by dreams of grandeur, by delusions, by all this shit. And I was going through a really deep spiritual awakening at the time, of really connecting to God. And all of a sudden my daemon is no longer geared towards the world and making billions of dollars. Now my daemon is geared towards God. And now I'm trying to become a yogi and a mystic and all of these different things. And this is what people don't understand about the daemon. It takes any dream you have. It takes any story that you tell yourself, any hero that you hold in your mind, and it tries to live it. This is why stories can literally kill men with a daemon. The story you are telling yourself and the story you are receiving from the world, the daemon will eat it. And whatever story feels like it's like the most powerful in your life, the daemon will try to conform your entire life to become that story. This is what killed Alexander the Great. This is what killed men of great spirit, men of great daemon, is whatever, you gotta be careful of what stories you consume. So basically the Wolf of Wall Street story defined me from like 16 to 19, right? And it destroyed me. And then there was another story of the spiritual hero that then took my consciousness. And I'm kind of at this point now in my life where I've written my own story. I don't really follow. I've been so disillusioned by the world in the past 10 years. I'll tell you more about that in a second. So, self-destruction. We need to talk about this. I've talked about this in many videos at this point. But as Nietzsche said, great men are like explosions. They are overflowings. They spend themselves. They do not preserve themselves. In my whole life, I've can't go more than about 1 or 2 weeks in peace. I'll go to an island in Hawaii, and after 2 weeks, I'm like, what? I'm here to build shit. I'm here to do glorious things with a band of brothers. There's a deep restlessness inside of me for more. And you probably feel this too. And a lot of the new age spirituality and Buddhism and internet advice is like trying to subdue the desires in your soul, trying to subdue the restlessness in your soul and make you content now. And that's fine if you want to be mediocre. But like if you are striving for greatness, the restlessness in your soul is driving you towards something. It's driving you towards your dream and your story that you're supposed to write. And you're going to be disillusioned by every story you find in the world until you find your project, your unifying story. And that's what you can hone into. So probably like you, I'm a sensitive young man. And that means I feel deeply. I feel grand dreams. I feel passions. I feel desires. I feel temptations really deeply. And this has been so hard. And to be possessed by a daemon, it means that you aim at the pinnacle. You aim at the heights of glory, of art, of genius, or love, or God. And being sensitive and aiming at the heights, it creates this double mixture, this alchemy that is going to create a lot of pain. This has led me to so much pain and suffering and addictions in my life because I have felt utterly isolated in this. I have felt unmet by the world. Like all of this stored up tremendous energy, it wants to be expressed, but it has nowhere to go. So I'd end up destroying myself over and over and over. You probably feel this too. For instance, if you are born to lead, you're here to lead, but you have nothing to lead. You have nothing to do. You don't know where to start. This energy could destroy you. Same thing with art. If you're here to create a masterpiece on the piano, but you've never learned how to play the piano before, you're going to feel all of this emotion and pressure inside of you that doesn't know where to go. So it's essential that you start finding the medium to express the daemon well. And so when I was young and stupid, I found that a drug promised me everything, right? It could meet me. It channeled the daemon, and it led me to God and glory. And that drug, it took everything from me. And also when I was young and stupid, I found a girl that seemed to have promised everything to me, love and happiness. And you know how that story ends. When I was young, I had dreams of tribe and great friendships and great loves and great adventures that I would take. And for 10 years, I've been disillusioned at every step of that adventure. To be honest with y'all, I've barely made it out of Tartarus alive. And I'm blessed to have been humbled for a decade. Like I said, homelessness, addictions, heartbreaks, insomnia, failures, chronic pains. And I basically, when I was 18, I was golden boy, going to an Ivy League school, valedictorian, top of the class. And then I was just dragged through the mud. I barely made it out alive, and I have scars all over. But I also have a whole new relationship to my daemon and to my destiny that I want to share here for the leaders of tomorrow. So the first problem of the daemon is self-destruction. You got to be careful about this, and I'm going to talk about my steps for channeling the daemon well here in a second. The second problem of the daemon is egotism. So when I meet men of great ambition, and I've met many through this YouTube channel, unfortunately, many lack the heart and humility to match your ambition. For instance, some of you want to conquer the stars or the steps, but you don't know how to lead. And that's because in order to lead well, you need to understand the human heart. And the human heart, your soul, is the counterbalance to your daemon. There is a war within all of us between daemon and soul. For instance, my soul just wants to fish and write fiction books and live a pleasant life by a stream. But my daemon wants to build incredible projects of beauty and power into the world with a glorious band of brothers. This counterbalance of purpose and peace, of love and power, these things are ever a conflict inside of us. But we actually need that generative tension between love and power, between peace and purpose. You need both of these things, because without peace and love, you become rigid, right? You become very egotistical. You become very locked in your own identity and mind and things. And these guys, when you meet them, I just met a very young, very successful entrepreneur. He's 20. And he's got so much going for him. He has such a daemon, such ambition, such a drive for excellence in every part of his life. But he lacks a bit of the openness, a bit of the humility, a bit of the love that actually glues people and things together, that makes life juicy, right? So the problem with the daemon is it creates egotism, and it lacks the feminine counterbalance in life. And this is why a lot of, he specifically, that guy I was just mentioning, and many other men, they need a masculine initiation, or they need to fall in love. They probably need both. Both of these things introduce you to the dark side of life. And I believe the goal in life in general is actually to develop a huge ego that is permeable. Your ego is your sense of self, your confidence, your self-worth. And by Daimon-maxxing, by channeling desire into the world and chasing your dreams like a madman, through doing this, you're going to develop a huge ego, because you're going to develop virtues and skills and experiences and knowledge that far outstrip, if you didn't Daimon-max, right? So you're going to develop an ego and a sense of self. This is good. You need that. You need that assertiveness and confidence. But I would say a huge ego that is also permeable, open to being checked, open to humility, open to the love of others. It is a huge ego that is soft. And this is where a great friend, a great woman, and great loss is so essential on the great man's path. So women, let's talk about women for a second. Women have always been a paradox for men of great daemon. On one hand, women are drawn to the fire of ambition, to the man striving toward his pinnacle. On the other hand, this same fire burns too hot. It's too restless. It's too consumed for the peace and presence that a relationship requires. This is why a lot of men come into a relationship very hot, right? But the relationship waters them down. And unfortunately, a lot of men lose their daemon to a woman, right? All of a sudden they get a woman, they have a family, and their dreams, they just sacrifice their dreams for it. The dreams of writing a grand book or taking a great adventure, becoming something. And we all have to make sacrifices in our lives, my friends. My question for you watching this is, what do you want to devote yourself to wholeheartedly? What does your daemon call for? And if it is family and love, beautiful. A lot of men, that's probably going to be their path to the most success they have. But if you're called to something more, don't let women kill your daemon, my friends. Let women humble your daemon. Balance it out. In my own life, I found that women can soften the daemon's edge. A good woman humbles you. She demands your heart, your presence, your humanity, not just your striving. When I was 19 to 24, I dated a very feminine, awesome woman. And she hated when I stood on my tiptoes, when I was striving for a vision that was out of reach, when I was living from a place that wasn't rooted in masculinity. Unfortunately, I wasn't a man yet. She helped me become a man. So she was pissed at me in a lot of different ways. But women I've dated, they can't stand a man who is on his tiptoes. So women can soften your daemon, but they can also kill the daemon in most men. Most men, when they get a lover, they think that's all they need, and they let the daemon die. And it's just the way of the world right now. It's a challenge for me when I lose friends to a woman. It's not the type of brothers I want in my life. So let's talk about virtue quick. Virtue. Daimon-maxxing is ultimately about virtue. The more power you get, the more virtue you need, or else you will destroy yourself. Listen up, guys. Listen up to all the young, ambitious ones out there. If you get the power to have any woman on earth, you will probably ruin your relationships. If you have the power to get any and every drug on earth, pursue every high and flee to fancy, 99% of you will destroy yourselves. Desire is simply a force that can be directed in many directions. Men with great daemon, with powerful desire, are literally riding a dragon. This is how it feels in my life. I have realized in the past month or two of my life that the reason that I am so easily tempted by addictions, tempted by women, tempted by things is because I have inside of my soul great desire, great daemon. And that desire, it has been drawn in every single direction in life, searching for something, searching for God, searching for self-actualization. And it's been disillusioned at every single place that desire has ever been channeled, unless that desire is channeled towards real greatness. What is real greatness? Greatness is living into virtue, living into your dharma, living into your holistic excellence. What does that look like to be the best version of yourself truly? Like truly take a look at yourself. And that's where I'm coming into right now in my life. And I'm living, a life of total sobriety right now, of simple routines, of discipline, of friendships, of great conversation. And desire is such a powerful force, but you got to be careful where it's pointed. This is why choosing the right ideal is so important. When I was young, it was a very physical ideal. I wanted to be jacked. I wanted to be ripped. I wanted to be a bodybuilder. Then it was the Wolf of Wall Street ideal. I wanted to be rich. Then it was the yogi ideal. My ideals have changed 1,000 times. I've been disillusioned with almost every mentor and story in my life, but this is important. Your ideals must evolve, and choose really, really good role models. I honestly think the best role models are fictional characters because you can't be disillusioned by them because you'll never meet them. We'll talk about that another time. So for all those possessed by a daemon, how do you channel it into being all that you can be? So just to recap here, the daemon is the force to grow. It's the desire to be all that you can. Greatness, I would define it as devoting yourself wholeheartedly to something beyond yourself. You could be a great father, devoting yourself wholeheartedly to the management of your family and to the growth of your family and relations. Greatness could be devoting yourself wholeheartedly to your work, right? It's what I'm doing right now is I want to inspire the leaders of tomorrow. I want to build a badass traveling brotherhood, and then I want to start the towns of the future. That I am devoting myself to wholeheartedly, right? And it's taken me a long time to find that unifying life project for myself. A lot of you don't know your unifying life project. I'm going to talk about that. But greatness is devoting yourself wholeheartedly to something. And many of us need to work up to that level. You see, one of the biggest problems many of you watching this right now have is that when you're too far from your goal, from your dharma, from your purpose, it's hard to have burning desire. It's very hard to have burning desire if, let's say, you're here to start new towns with your brotherhood, right? If you want to do that, but you're sitting in college right now, or you're sitting at a desk job as an accountant, it's going to be really hard to feel burning desire for that because the goal is too vague. When the goal is too far away and too vague, it's hard to have a lot of desire for it that actually creates transformation. And this is because there's too much work with not enough progress. So to overcome this big problem and also channel the daemon well, here are 7 steps I want to talk to you guys about. Number 1 is always have an inspiring story in your head. This is literally life hack tip number 1. When I don't have a good book, a good fiction book or historical fiction book, my life quality drops 2 points at least. I'm far less inspired. But a good book, a good movie, they can ignite me for weeks. So I'm constantly on Goodreads now. I'm constantly keeping a list of good books and good movies I want to read and watch. And historical fiction is my favorite right now. Shout out to Christian Cameron, Stephen Pressfield, love them. So always have a good story in your head. This is really important for Daimon-maxxing. Step number 2 is health-maxxing. If you're tired, being tired kills the daemon faster than anything. This was my problem with addiction in general. So health-maxxing comes in. I encourage everyone to look into Ray Peat and an animal-based diet. I like Paul Saladino a lot right now. But essentially, as you eat more meat and fruit, like I've been doing, I've put 10 pounds of muscle on in the past year. My metabolism is ripping. I'm eating like 3,000 plus calories a day. My energy levels have tripled. So health-maxxing, a Ray Peat animal-based diet plus daily gym and sleep routine. Like these really basic things allow you to channel the daemon really well. And one thing I would add to health-maxxing is actually just great conversations with friends. Finding a true friend. If you have just laughter and love and conversations with someone, it ignites the daemon inside of you. This is so important. In fact, I would say all great voyages, all great projects and adventures. You can think of the Wright brothers inventing the airplane as the spark of it was true friendship. When you have a true friend in your life, just remember how inspired that makes you at night. I was just in Mexico for a month with someone from the Men's Academy. We're about to travel the world as a band of brothers, which is awesome. And every single night, our conversations brushed the stars, let's just say. It's beautiful. So health-maxxing, daily gym, sleep routine, a good friend. These things are important. And then deeply desire. For Daimon-maxxing, I think of it as the gaze of fire. I take this from my mentor, the Golden One. When you're in the gym, treat it as a ceremony of the daemon in the temple of iron. I am gaze-maxxing in the mirror with the gaze of fire, lifting, like a spirit is possessing me, right? And it's the same thing when I sit down in the morning to work. As my dad always says, seize the day. Go kick some serious ass today. Channel that desire, channel that gaze of fire into your actions, And this comes down to the questions is what's your dream? What's the pinnacle? What's your next mission? I think living an inspired life is really important. And a lot of men don't ask the question of what do you really want, my friend? What do you want in your life? What do you want to become right now? And if you're not 20, let's say you're 45, you can still ask yourself that question. And actually, I think it's more important to ask that question as you get older because we get stuck in work and routines and all these things. And I'm like, what's your dream? What the fuck do you really want to do? And go chase it with everything. So this gets us to step number 4, and that is act on your instincts, follow your desires. I have an issue with the discipline guys. I have an issue with the Brian Johnson people on the internet, is they live these lives of such structure, which is cool. I'm into structure. I really like routines. It's my medicine right now. But the thing is you should build those routines around your deepest freaking instinct, around your deepest desire. And that comes down to knowing the number one thing. To know your number one thing, imagine this. You had to compress your entire mission, your entire goal over the next 5 years into one action. What would that action be? If you had to compress your entire dream into one motion that you had to do every single morning, what would that motion be? For me, it's write. I write things like this, right? So know your number one thing and do it every single morning. I mean, guys, routines, the greatest people in history, they all had basically the same routine. They'd wake up, they would do deep work for 2 to 4 hours, and then their evenings, they would do some correspondences, take walks, converse with friends. Like everyone who's done anything does deep work for 2 to 4 hours in the morning, and they follow their desires. And I also think the issue with a lot of discipline is it doesn't allow for a lot of trial and error. I mean, for a whole decade there, I tried everything, like every spiritual practice, every business idea, every drug, every diet, every type of person. I tried everything so that I could discover what doesn't work for me, what isn't right? And I could identify my own inner nature and then structure my life around my inner nature. And that is leading me to a deeper realization of the right balance of free time and routine, for maximized desire and action. And here's the thing. Inspiration doesn't last forever. A lot of the young men watching this, you love getting lit up. You have big ideas, big dreams, and then you work on it for a week and then nothing ever happens, right? And this is where we all need to follow the invisible staircase method. I'll be making a follow-up video on this. But the invisible staircase means you can only see the next step in your progression, okay? And if you have a dream that feels very vague, it doesn't have enough magnetism to pull you towards it because you're not clear enough on your dream. So in order to start getting more clear on your dream, on your unifying life project, you must walk up the invisible staircase. And the invisible staircase method means there is a stair right in front of you. That is the next step. Maybe that stair is like moving locations, making some more money, getting a part-time job, starting your Substack, right? Leveraging social media to do something, learning AI automation. What is the next stair in front of you, and how can you channel burning desire into it so that you can accomplish the next stair so that the next level is revealed to you? And this is how all business, all beauty, and all success emerges. It is through an invisible staircase towards a vague dream. And as you get closer to the vague dream starts to pull you towards it as it becomes more clear. So follow the invisible staircase method and channel your entire mission into one action. This is what I recommend for Daimon-maxxing. And the next 3 steps, these 3 steps, again, are probably the most important for curbing the negative side of the daemon, okay? So number 5 here is remove ego traps. No drugs, no delusions of grandeur, no shortcuts. And for a lot of people here, a lot of people watching this, you're going to have to go surrender for a while. Like just go face the unpleasantness of letting go of that addiction, of letting go of that person, right? That is just a weight that is so toxic for you. Noticing temptations, surrendering them. This is where we need stillness and a meditation practice. You see, there's 2 poles in life, as I've discussed in this video. There's the daemon, and then there's the soul. And what we need to do is elevate them both to their pinnacle in a harmonious tension. The soul grows through surrender, through stillness, and through love, right? So if the daemon is the quest for more, the soul has the opposite quest. The quest to be content with nothing. The quest for love. The quest for peace. So this is where stillness and meditation is really important. And especially if, you struggle with deep temptation and deep desire, I think learning a meditation practice like Vipassana meditation, Qigong, a transcendental meditation practice is so important so that you can notice temptations and surrender them. And also, This comes with maturity. Like as you remove ego traps and you surrender temptations, you stop taking freaking shortcuts in life. You stop the drugs, you stop the delusions of grandeur, you stop the things that are going to destroy you in the future. You start building virtue. And as you start building virtue and building your stillness inside of yourself, you create a better vessel for the daemon to act through. Okay? And this is actually how you become great. Is you got to balance soul and daemon together. So this brings us to step 7, which is find your allies, grow your brotherhood. I talked about this. The true male friendships are what inspire most great voyages, most great empires, most great projects. It's 2 guys sitting together in a basement. They're like, dude, this is the thing. They get all excited. They're shooting pool. They're playing ping pong, playing some chess. Is what I love doing with my friends, right? And they're getting all excited about this idea. And then they wake up at 7 a.m. the next morning. They bring out their freaking laptops and they just get after it every single day. That's how great things come into life and great voyages happen, is through friendships. And I was just doing this for a whole month in Sayulita, Mexico. And this is what I'm dedicated to building. We're building a traveling community of entrepreneurs, of striving young men, of more established older men as well, with meetup retreats around the world, ongoing basis. So I want to build brotherhood. I'm all in on this. I think finding true friendships inspires the daemon, and also it balances you out. When you're around the right people, you don't need, those temptations are less. You can have accountability around you. We all need this more than you know. So there is a link below if you want to apply to join this very, very hand-selected group that we're building. And if not, if you don't want to join me in the nomadic traveling tribe right now, there's also an online group. But whether or not you join me, I would definitely just say find your allies in real life, in your local communities. Like find true friends, find your brothers, and grow your brotherhood. This is probably the best thing you can do to feel your daemon and feel your balance. So with all that being said, I'll link a video right here about the Renaissance and the raging egotism and monsters and daemons of the Renaissance. Very in tune with this video. Thanks for being here. This is Wisdom Warriors. My name is Christian. If you enjoyed this video, let me know in the comments below. Maybe I'll make more teaching in this style. Anyways, peace.